Hey, everybody, welcome to the next expedition. No, it's not an expedition. Hey, everybody, welcome to Visible Kindness Podcast. Another episode. I'm very blessed to have a very good friend of mine from South Africa with me. For me this morning, for her in the evening, and it's Brittany McCormick. And Brittany McCormick, we've known each other for a number of years now. I think, I don't know, it's been like 4, 5, 6 years, Brittany?
It's been a lot less than that, but
is that right? Well, you know me, I have a brain surgery and I can't remember time at all. But it is, we've had a great relationship, and I've always liked just visiting with you and talking, and doing an episode is fantastic. And you have cerebral palsy. And
Yes,
we talked about that a lot, what your life is like. And we had a very interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago that you thought, and I'm going to say that, you thought this would be a good idea for a podcast. And
Yes.
I agreed to it because it's going to be very humbling for me. So I would love it if you take a few minutes and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are. And just we'll start from there.
Well, hi, I'm Brittany McCormick. I am a South African motivational keynote speaker, and I love helping other people, encouraging them, and giving them stories to help them overcome challenges and obstacles that they may be facing. I've spoken on a few podcasts, and I've spoken in a few countries via YouTube, and for a few companies locally in my country. What can I say? I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I'm filled with such excitement, and I cannot wait to have this amazing conversation with Ed Squire. He is a phenomenal gentleman, filled with so many talents, and we've been friends for quite some time, and it's just been absolutely awesome to come back for the second episode and have this little chat.
You know, Brittany, it's kind of, I'm sitting here thinking you should be running this show, not me. And everybody's going to understand in a minute. But you've had a very, you have an interesting lifestyle. I'm so proud of you for what you do, what you've done, where you're going. And we had an interesting conversation when we talked last time. And you said it'd be great to do a podcast about what we talked about. And
Yes.
I agreed. I mean, I looked around thinking, do I want to do that? And it was, you asked me some very powerful questions for me that were just, it was, I didn't even have the words to say. Our listeners are going to hear about, really, we're going to kind of like redo that conversation. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I hope you're ready.
Okay.
I'm
So
really excited.
we didn't talk for I don't know, a couple of years. We didn't talk. We connected, and I was telling Brittany how I had a brain surgery, which everybody knows, and the challenges of recovering from that, and some of the things that are challenging to me even still are my thinking capabilities. Like before I hit record, I had to ask Brittany again, what is it that you have? Cerebral palsy, right? It's like, half my friends, I don't remember their names or their jobs. And it's a struggle recovering from brain surgery. And it also affects me physically as well. As I've posted a couple of times on not YouTube, but on Facebook, and I don't post about these things a lot. I don't like talking about it, but I think it's because I was so frustrated I did. And that was the issue of, before I had the brain surgery, I had pain in my legs. And then after the brain surgery, yay, the pain went away. But for some reason, more pain came back, and it's different than the original pain. And I'm in pain every day, all day, constantly. And it's very frustrating for me. So I was just telling Brittany what my pains in my life are like. And I wasn't even thinking. She's sitting there. She knows what it's like to have pains and challenges in life. And I'm just going to say a couple more things, and then I'm going to hand the mic over to you. And then I told Brittany, and this is something I wasn't going to tell people, but when she asked me why, I would not. tell people. It was because I would be embarrassed to tell them, and that's what you're about to hear, and you're going to understand why in this conversation. And I like to take pictures of everything, and photo, or pictures and photo and video. A lot of people know I had a I mean, literally thinking social media episode. No, it was a I have. Isn't that something? See, this drives me crazy. I had a manic episode because I have whatever mental health issue that is, which I know what it is. And I got sent to the hospital from my doctor's office in an emergency vehicle, and I filmed that, and it was a 22-second video, put it up on Facebook, and everybody really liked it. It was very humbling for me to show everybody I have bipolar. And I've never ever mentioned that publicly because I always thought I looked fine. I look fine. I act fine. Nobody knows I got big time problems, but I do. And then when the brain surgery was done, it was about 4 months after the brain surgery last year. All of a sudden, this pain came back in my legs, which I just mentioned a second ago. So let me get to where I was. When I went home for Christmas from Colorado to Canada, my sister, who is a very good nurse, she said, you should take and organize a wheelchair for when you're in the airport. And I'm like, what? Why would I do that? And she said, you have two problems right now. One is your ability to think straight. It's possible that you won't think straight to get to your gate. That's possible. And I'm like, yeah, I can get around that. I'm thinking I'll be okay. And then she said, another issue is you have a lot of pain walking. And it's a long distance in both Vancouver Airport and in Denver to get to where you want to go. You haven't walked that kind of a distance. And those two things combined, she said, you should get a wheelchair. And I thought long and hard about that. And I decided to do it. And I did it. And I was just sharing this with Brittany, not even thinking about what she's about to ask in the minute and where this conversation is going to go. I was very nervous about it. I was in this wheelchair going through the airport, and I'm treated differently. People looked at me kind of weird. And I'm like, I thought I was a cool guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm Ed Squire. Nobody knows who I am, and it was challenging for me to get through the airport there and back. And I was just telling that to Brittany, and she brought up a good conversation. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, my friend.
Hi, I'm back. So, Ed, when we had this conversation, I asked you an honest question. And it was, why didn't you take a photo? Was it because you're embarrassed? And did you feel ashamed of it? And, in that you kind of just looked at me and you were like, Brittany, yes. And I said to you, Ed, that is our reality. That's my reality. When I go to an airport, when I go to a restaurant, when I go out in public, in my wheelchair, the reality is people stare at me. That's just the truth.
When you said that, that just really hit me hard. That really hit me hard. That was such a good question. I didn't expect it. And it really made me think about you a lot. And we talked about your lifestyle. We talked about what you go through. And we talked about what other people go through who have issues, there's all kinds of things that we go through in life. And I've never been through anything like that. I've always, wanted to look. I mean, I've been posting a ton of, about being authentic and not caring what people think about you. And it's really important. It's important to be authentic and really don't care about what people think about you. But it is not easy when, like, I remember when I was in my doctor's office and she called the ambulance and I was like, I said to her, you got to be kidding me. The ambulance bed would, if I say yes, is going to come into this room, put me on the ambulance bed and take me out through the main hallway, through the main door, and everybody's going to see me. And she's a doctor. She's like, she don't care if people are going to see me. This is what needs to be done. This needs to be done. And I did. And it was, I'm going through things in my life that I never ever expected to. And it's really made me think differently about other people and what they go through a lot.
Mm. And Ed, I think you're talking about authenticity and being real. When you have a disability, you can't hide it. You can't hide cerebral palsy. I know for me, okay, maybe some people can hide their disabilities, but for me, I can't hide mine. I can't hide the fact that I have leg spasms, or I have a club foot, or my knees knock. That's stuff that you cannot hide. And, to someone else, it's a big deal. But to me, it's just how I am. And that's okay. My soul is whole because I have Christ in me. And the rest of it doesn't matter. The way I look on the outside is nothing compared to what I look like on the inside.
I've had to learn about thinking this way in the last few years of my life, for sure. And as you know, we talked a lot about the differences that the Lord has made in my life, which has been everything. There's nothing to me I'd rather have than what he's done in my life the last few years. We don't know how long we're going to be here.
Yeah.
We may not, literally, you may not be here tomorrow morning. I might not be here this afternoon. We just don't know. We have one breath at a time, and the Bible's very clear that our lives are as a vapor, and like a vapor it just disappears. I never used to think like this. So I knew that because I knew the Bible, but it just was not in my heart. It was in my head. And I live now every day, one moment at a time. And the reality is, no matter what happens, when you get to heaven, and when I get to heaven, I'm not going to have any brain problems, mental health problems. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be perfect, and so are you. I imagine that, literally. I talk to people about this quite often. I just imagine that, to see you, to get together, and all the things in life that were earthly are absolutely gone. And it's going to be such an incredible day that will be eternity.
Yes, and Ed, but while we are on this earth, we have a job, and that is to be an example of Jesus Christ, the Alpha, the Omega, the King of all kings. And we have challenges like brain tumors, like cerebral palsy, like all the other disabilities, but at the end of the day, it's about Jesus and honoring Jesus for what he's doing in your life. Ed, you're alive. You're here. You're not in heaven. God's not done.
That's right.
And, we had this conversation when we met. We had a friendly little online coffee and chat. And I said to you, Ed, God's not done with you. And the harsh reality is that we have to adjust. You have to adjust now, but that's okay. But what do you have to learn during those adjustments to make an impact in someone else's life? What is something that you have to take away from each learning curve that you now have to go through that you didn't have to go through before your brain surgery? And being in a wheelchair, it's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. I'm grateful that there's always people that are worse. And like, what does worse mean? That have more of a disability where maybe they can't even take a wheelchair. They can't. I mean,
or
you
they're
can't compare
bedridden.
yourself to other people for sure.
No. So, and when I realized this when I was a lot younger than what I am now, I realized, okay, I'm in a wheelchair. People are going to stay, and you just got to accept that maybe it's because people don't understand. It's not because they're judging you or being ugly, you know, and they might be thinking, what happened to her or what happened to him? I hope he's okay. Instead of thinking, look at her, why is she different? That's not your mindset that you should have towards it. You should have the understanding of maybe I'm an inspiration to them. Maybe looking at me in a wheelchair kind of gives them a new, fresh perspective on their own lives. Um, I've had so many people say to me, Brittany, I apologize for complaining. And I said to them, why? It's relevant to what you're going through. Why are you saying sorry? Why are you moaning? Why are you, and one thing I do believe it is that season and reason has lessons to be learned.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm grateful that God has kept me alive to get to the point of where that is where I'm at now. There's
And you
nothing
know,
more important than see. There's a reason why we met. There's no coincidence. There's just God has a plan for every single thing He does, and I've never been so grateful in all my life. With everything that I'm going through, it doesn't take away from me anymore. I'm like you now. It's like this is a challenge. That's a challenge. This is causing me problems. It's like I just do this. It's like, but I'm alive and I am here. God has a plan for me. We're never here for no reason, and and we don't have to try to even figure that out. He just wants to be with us one day at a time. And if that's not happening, then your goals, what you're doing for God, and I say that jokingly because for a long time I thought I was doing things for God while He was in the passenger seat, and I finally got to the place where I realized, he said
why
to me,
isn't he in the drivers?
he's like he wants to be in the driver's seat. Hey, what you're
Yeah.
doing, Ed, I'll never forget. What you're doing, Ed, is good. It's good. You're going here. You're doing it. It's all for me. But he said that wasn't my plan. I would like to be in the driver's seat. You sit in the passenger seat, and I'll take you where I want you to go.
Amen.
And that was just only in the last year and a half or so that happened. And it was just like this light bulb came on top of my head. Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And so I slid over to the passenger seat, and that's where I am now. And it's a much better place to be. I don't have to show Him what I'm doing for Him and look what I'm doing for you, God. He's like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to just to be with Him and to have that intimate relationship with Him.
And also to be the fruits of Jesus as well.
Yes.
You know. But Ed, I wanted to ask you a few in-depth questions, and I'm hoping that you're open to answering them.
Well, this
How
is your
did it make
podcast. This is your podcast, so go ahead.
how did it make you feel being pushed around in the wheelchair? Not just taking a photo, but actually being pushed in the wheelchair. How, what was going through your mind at the time?
Well, when I got to the check-in, and you put your bags in, and they know that I had booked the wheelchair. And she said the wheelchair, they're calling for it. It'll be here in a few minutes. Go ahead and sit back there. So I went and sat back there, and I'm just sitting there going, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm gonna feel like an idiot. That's what I felt. I'm gonna feel like an idiot when that thing comes. And he pulls up, and really nice guy, and I get in the wheelchair. I just sat down, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And I'm like, do I really need to do this? And I did. I gotta say, if I wasn't on, if I didn't take the wheelchair on the way back from Canada, I wouldn't have made it. I would have made my flight, which is interesting because I got lost. I knew I got lost without having them there. But then they took me through, security and all that. And, you go past it's really nice. You go past everyone, yay, to the front of the line, but everybody's looking at you. Everybody's looking at me. And I was trying to smile. I was trying to, I don't know. It was just such
Yeah.
a weird thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Does this make sense?
Yes.
I'm like, I don't
Yes.
want people to think a certain thing, but they're going to because I'm sitting in a wheelchair. And then I
Yeah.
had to get out of the wheelchair to go through the X-ray, whatever you call that stuff that tests what's in your body. In my case, a lot of metal.
The
And then get back in
the
the wheelchair.
safety scanner.
And it was just, what did you say? Well, I'm sorry, what did you say?
The safety scanner.
Yes. And then you get back in the wheelchair and then you wait. So it was so uncomfortable. And then they took me on the train and I was having a conversation with the guy and he's really nice. And I didn't want to just sit there saying nothing.
Mm.
Right? I wanted to have a conversation with him like I do with anybody that I'm with. So to have a conversation, I'm facing this way, he's up there, and I'm like trying to be nice, and we did. He was really, really nice. We had a nice conversation. But I can't tell you how uncomfortable I was the whole way through, the whole way.
Did you feel at some point vulnerable?
100%. When I felt like standing up and going, "Hey, everybody, I can actually stand. Hey, everybody," but the biggest problem is my brain. It's just like I wanted everybody to know what is the situation here. You know what I mean? It was a very interesting, and I never thought I'd do a podcast about it. But I'm definitely not ashamed of it. But it took me to the core of who I am.
And how did it make you feel not being able to look him directly in the eyes?
How did you know I didn't do that? I didn't look at people directly in the eyes. Is that what you mean?
Because when you're sitting on the floor
Yeah.
or your chair, you can't look people at eye level.
No.
How did that make you feel?
It was horrible because I wear my kindness shirts. I like to have conversation with people. I like to say something nice about them. And here I'm sitting in a wheelchair. I said nothing to nobody. I took no pictures. I always take pictures of stuff. I could have taken a cool video of me being pushed. No reason why I couldn't have filmed that. But I was way too, I didn't take any pictures of nothing. Yeah.
But now, Ed, the question I have for you is, why is that Ed completely different to the Ed that can walk? Because you are who you are. Just because you had to do something differently doesn't mean you're not the same Ed. Doesn't mean you can't talk about visible kindness. Doesn't mean you can't strike a conversation with somebody. What? And this is why I think this conversation is so interesting, is because people think, oh, just because you can't walk there, it means I can't be the same person. You can. You're the same person. So are you telling me if you sit down in a normal chair at a dining room table, you can't have the same conversation you can have while you're standing up? No.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt.
You can have
Yeah,
the same
I get it. I get it now. I get it now. I didn't get it even on the way back. This whole thing has been a life-changing thing. And it's so interesting that you and I connected since we haven't talked for so long after that happened. And then we're having that conversation. I'm glad, I'm grateful to have you as a friend and to bring me along this journey. I have not arrived in my life. I've definitely grown a lot more just from that. I really have.
And I think, Ed, for me personally, I would like people to see that there isn't a problem
That's right.
with the way the person looks.
That's right.
You should see their heart, not their problem. And my heart's desire is for that to happen and to teach people that they are overcomers. And what do I mean by overcomer? I mean, Ed, what you went through, you had to overcome.
Yeah.
Still weeks later, you're still processing what happened to you, because it's, in a way, for an average person, I think, humiliating because you're not used to it.
Yeah.
But it's not normal. For me, it's my normal. Being in a wheelchair when I go out in public is my normal. Taking half an hour to get dressed is my normal. Uh, it takes taking longer to accomplish tasks is my normal. I mean, hey, when I achieve my work tasks for the day in half the time, I'm like, yes, 10 times faster. Yes. And meanwhile, for someone else like you, it's done.
Right.
Now you've gone a few steps back and realized, oops, my brain's a little bit slower than what it used to be. How do I adjust to this? How do I cope? And to be honest with you, Ed, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. And the one thing that I've learned with my disability, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So long as you get this stuff to them, nobody cares.
Yeah.
No one is going to care how long it actually takes you to accomplish something.
No.
No one's going to care that it takes you half a day or 2 days to edit an episode. All they care about is that they can hear the episode, right?
Absolutely.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I've learned, not only throughout my career, but throughout my life, is what can you do to make somebody else feel less uncomfortable around you? And I was always taught by my family, explain to people, hey, this is the condition, but don't worry, I can do this, this, this. I can do 80% of daily activities like everybody else. It's just unique. And I think that the one thing that I'd like to encourage you by is that if you have to use a wheelchair, you still get to A to B. It's just on wheels, not on foot. And until you can be on foot a lot stronger, don't be embarrassed about it. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a form of transportation. It's like a car, just for indoors. And for me, I have a different way of moving around. At home, I'm quite mobile on my hands and knees, but in public spaces, I prefer to use my wheelchair or walk backwards with somebody holding me up. And sometimes that's pretty fun because I always say to my dad or to my sister or to my brother-in-law, you were the only few people that I know.
I was just going to tell you, if we meet in person, I'll absolutely do that for you. I could just absolutely, I would love to.
And it's actually a family joke when we say, look, you're the only person who's walked through a restaurant backwards. Yeah, it's quite a good family thing. And, my parents encouraged me to be as independent as possible. And that meant finding what works for me. And I still have to do that, with everything new that I take on, what works for me, what process works, what doesn't work. And it's always a process of elimination, right? It's, and I'm sure, Ed, when you had your incident or your surgery, should I say, you had to find ways that worked for you.
I still do. I do every day. It's just what it is. What it is now.
And there's nothing wrong with it is what it is now. There's nothing wrong with it. You're still the same Ed Squire. Your heart is still the same. Your goals are still the same.
No, actually, they're not. They're different. They're different.
Yes,
I'm not interested in anything. I've always wanted to make a difference in other people's lives,
Yes.
but it's at a different level now. I mean, it really, really is. Coming to being authentic and then not caring what people think has been a huge, huge win for me. That is huge. And I'm still stepping into that. And it brings me more joy and confidence than being able to speak well or make a good video. It's just knowing like all these things don't matter. And I like who I am as a human being. See, you are professional at these things, my friend. I appreciate you so much. I do. I appreciate you so much. I want you to know that. It means a
Well,
lot to
thank
me.
you so much. And I appreciate you and Ed, I think to be quite honest, I've had to just learn. And I'm gonna be honest, there's days where it's hard. There's
Yeah.
days where I'm crying my eyes out. There's days where I'm going, okay, really? Another day? Why? Why is it so hard? But then I reflect back and I'm like, but hold on, God, you're not done. So I don't have the right to moan and complain. I I always say to people, feel what you feel, but don't allow it to own you. You
This has
know,
been a great episode, my friend.
no, it's been amazing.
The conversation we had last time and this one has been really good. Uh, I appreciate you so much. Um, I do. And I'm just thinking, as we kind of wind down, I'm thinking, what would you, there's so much you can give, because you're such an excellent speaker and you've done so many things in that space. What would you like to, what would you like to tell everybody? What would you like to say to bring us to a close?
There's so many things, Ed. For me, it would be every season has a reason, and it's to find a way, not an excuse. Also, it's about what works for you, not about what works for other people. And so long as your end result is exactly what you want, and God is happy, and God is in the center of it all, nothing else matters. Nothing.
That's a powerful statement. Yeah, I really appreciate you a lot.
And Ed, I want you to also know that you are no different to still wanting to achieve things. Everybody has goals, everybody has dreams. It just means that now you've had to find a different way. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because somebody ran a race 20 minutes faster than what you could doesn't mean you're not going to get to the end. It just means you had to do it uniquely, and that's fine. But I want you not to feel embarrassed about your circumstances, and I want you to use that to kind of make a change instead of feeling embarrassed. And I can't answer how you should do that, but it's yours to
Oh, I
figure
can
out.
answer that. I can answer that.
Go
It's
ahead.
it was, and I never expected it, but it's where I'm taking visible kindness. It's the podcast is one part of it. The biggest part of it is me being kind to myself on a daily basis, and that's a whole thing in itself. What does that mean? It's a whole thing, and I want to teach. I want to consult. I want to help. I want to coach. I don't know, whatever God has, but I want to be able to help people to know what it means to really care about yourself and like yourself. And the other one is to be kind to other people. I originally started this because, and I've never said this on the podcast before, but I started Visible Kindness when my mental health therapist said, "Ed, you need to start looking up," because I was suicidal at the time, and I never talked about that either. She said, "You need to start looking up because you're always looking down. You're always looking down. You're never looking up." And that made me angry when she said that, because I just had so much anger in me with everything. And so I started to look up at people, and I was so uncomfortable. And I thought, I'm going to try to say this hi thing. So I would say hi, and it wasn't like I say hi now. I say hi with confidence. I say hi with joy.
Yeah.
But back then it was kind of like hi. My therapist said I should say hi. It wasn't that. It wasn't like that. But it was
Yeah.
just kind of weird for me. And pretty much everybody looked at me and said hi back, just like hi. Have a nice day. Hi. And I was just shocked that people were just generally nice. So I
Yes.
started doing that a lot. And then I started wearing these t-shirts, and I got a bunch of them that have kindness quotes on them. And I started wearing them because I suffered from complex, PTSD and clinical depression, which I still do. And when I wore those shirts, people would see them and they would say something about them. It would always snap me out of being in that state
Yes.
of mind. And then I decided to do the podcast because I have to be positive. I can't be, in a suicidal state of mind doing a podcast called Visible Kindness. Started that way. And now, there's a Bible scripture that says, and it's the most powerful one in the New Testament, other than receiving Christ as your savior. That would be number one. Then the next one is love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, love your neighbor as yourself. That, and I know a lot of people that are not Christians like to use, and that's great. Love your neighbor as yourself. We need that. But when you love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, that's a big,
Yeah.
powerful statement. That means
Yeah.
something. Heart, soul, and mind it's deep, deep. And so I started living that way, and then that's what I use as visible kindness, kind of like mission. It's not a Christian podcast, but I am a Christian putting it on, and it's all about kindness in those spaces that we just talked about
Yes.
today. That's what it's all about, and
Yeah.
it's been amazing. You have been amazing. You are always kind. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your life with me, and yeah, I really do. Thank you.
But Ed, the truth is that with conditions when disabilities, I know for me, there's nothing too hard. If you can change someone's life with your own things, then allow God to do that.
Yes.
And you know, I think visible kindness is not just being kind, but it's really seeing people for who they are.
Yes. Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that when when you do things and you get people on the podcast and it's all about what do you do, but it's really about looking at the person and going, oh, I see their heart. And that is so special. And I think that you are the only one that could make that change. And sometimes hard things have to happen for us, for our lives to change for the better, for God to take over. Because sometimes we try and control what God needs to do and we can't. And God knows our hearts way more than what we do. And I love Jesus. So when people ask me, how am I happy? How am I so kind? How do I get through it? My answer is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. He is the Alpha, the Omega, the King of all kings.
Yeah.
He's my reason. He's my lesson, and He's my season. So with Him, anything is possible.
Yes.
And same with you. You can get
Absolutely.
through. You can get through this recovery season. You can get through this chapter. But it's about how has it built my character? What has it done for me as Ed Squire, not just Ed Squire, the Visible Kindness brand?
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally with you. We'll have to do this again. I want to thank you, Brittany, for taking the time to do this. It's late at night your time, and early in the morning my time. And I just appreciate your wisdom and your kindness towards me and everybody else that's listening to this and watching it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. And if anybody wants to get hold of me on Facebook, it's Brittany McCormick. And Instagram is Brittany McCormick Official. And LinkedIn is Brittany McCormick.
Thank you, Brittany.
Not a problem. Be blessed, Ed.
Thank you.